Hi, my name is Pam Denny. I'm the designer and architect of the Maximo BI or Business Intelligence tools. Today's presentation is going to highlight some of the new ad hoc reporting features in Maximo 7.6. So let's get started right away and look at all the tools that Maximo delivers to you out of the box to analyze your data. And I love this slide because it highlights what a diverse portfolio we have. We have very simple tools like data download or QBE, where you export your list tab results to Excel, to much more advanced analytic products like the BI packs and Cognos. But what I'm going to specifically focus on today is the new features that we've added to ad hoc reporting or QBR reporting. Ad hoc reporting enables your business and power users to create their own reports on the fly. This can significantly reduce the number of custom reports you have to create, as your users are now empowered to get the information they need when they need it. So let's start by looking at those features. Well, first off, when we talk about QBR or ad hoc reporting in Maximo, there's a number of different processes or components that take place. Over here on the far left-hand side, we have QBR creation. These are the users that are actually creating the QBR reports. They determine what fields display, what the grouping, sorting order is, etc. In the middle, we have our administrator. Our administrator is so important as they're going to create things like security privileges, what specific QBR actions are available to each of the security groups. And oftentimes, they're going to create the report object structures, which are a cornerstone of QBR reporting. And then we have everyone else who's going to consume the output that was created, right? So we create these QBR reports, and then all the other users are going to view that output. Maybe they'll schedule it, email it, but those are the beneficiaries of everything that's being created. Well, what we did in 7.6 is we focused significantly on the creation end. We added a number of features to make it easier to create reports, but also we've extended the type of ad hoc reports that can be created by including summaries and calculations. And for our administrator, what we've did is we've added new performance enablers, specific preview limits, which is a best practice so you can make sure that when you're creating a report, you don't have a negative performance impact. But what I want to highlight at a very top level today is the new features that we've added for summaries and calculations, and also highlight to you that there are additional videos that will take you step by step by step through each one of the processes and components with QBR reporting. So let's start with an overview of the new dialog. As I mentioned, we've simplified the QBR dialog. We've made it easier for people to navigate, and we've made it consistent as we've continued to build up the content or the tabs. The other major feature that we added was summaries. Summaries are shown over here, and they basically take aggregated values of the different fields that we have and display them at the very top of a report. In the example here, we have a summary asset report, and imagine as a user, I need to consume the content of this. All I have to do is look at the top fields, and I can see, for example, that my earliest install date of my assets was back in 94. So I've got a lot of, or I've got a one or a set of number of assets that are very old. But I can also quickly see my budgeted cost and my year-to-date cost. So I don't have to necessarily analyze each row. I can come right to the top of the page and look at those values. Well, how do summaries work? Well, we've added a new tab called Summarize, and again, there's a SIG option access for this. And what we do is we take a subset of the available fields. On the Content tab, I can see access to all the attributes within the various objects, but now we have a filter where we only look at the numeric fields. And the numeric fields are all listed here, and I can then apply any individual summary to those numeric fields. Why do we have this filter? Because we don't want a user, for example, trying to put an average on a description field. That would just get him frustrated and display an ugly error. So again, we make him as successful as possible, and we filter that out for him already. For summaries, these are the available functions that you have: total, count, average, minimum, maximum, medium, and mode. And again, you can apply those to the numeric attributes. And once you have that, your specific aggregated values will display on the top of the report. And that's an example that I had on the previous slide for our list report. If I had a grouped report, I would still see that very top level summary, but I would also see my aggregated fields at each of the group level. And you can see so many use cases of when I would want to do a grouping, maybe by work type or supervisor, manufacturer, site, so many different ways. And now again, you can apply those summaries at each of those group levels. So really simple but very powerful capability available with summaries. Now let's move into calculations. Calculations are going to greatly extend the types of ad hoc reports that you can create. Now what we're doing is we're enabling users to add individual columns or fields to the report, which are based on one or more attribute values. So in this example, he's added a column for estimated cost. Well, how did he do that? Well, utilizing the new Calculate tab, which again, there's a SIG option access for, the user created an expression. Expressions, again, use numeric fields only, and he added 3 individual attributes together: estimated at approval labor, material, and services cost. So rather than crowd a report with these 3 individual fields, he added them, showed the one value, and then it displays again right there as a separate column on the report. Estimated costs. Now that example is very simple, adding 3 fields together. But oftentimes we expect users to extend the calculation functionality to a much greater level. Here's another example of how that could be done with the number of weeks a work order is overdue. Well, in this case, it's a dynamic value because the weeks overdue will change from this week to next. So I need to take my current date and time and subtract it from an attribute, which in this case is scheduled finish. So a couple important points here is, again, this is a very dynamic figure. Scheduled finish is a fixed attribute. And I'm just taking the resultant of that and dividing by 7 because I don't want to know number of days. I want to know number of weeks. A couple of other key points is the data type value. This could be the trickiest part for an individual user, and this is also why this user requires a greater level of technical skill sets. He has to understand that when we are subtracting or adding or dividing, multiplying, whatever we might be doing, one or more attribute values, the resultant data type may not be the same as the actual attribute that was initially inputted. Another couple of key points here is we do have a test expression because as I create an expression, whether it's very simple or rather lengthy, I always want to make sure I'm doing it correct. I don't miss a parentheses, I don't add a 0 instead of an O, whatever that might be. So we get to that test expression functionality. And a couple other things is the expression library is highlighted right over here. The expression library is going to control what type of functions the user can create. Again, we want to make our users as successful as possible, and we want to make sure that if he's got an Oracle database, he's using an Oracle function, not a SQL Server function. So let's highlight a couple of calculation considerations in a bit more detail. First, again, that expression library, we want to make sure our users are successful, and also we want to make sure they're not inadvertently updating or deleting anything from the database, so we control the functions via the expression library, and sometimes you may hear that referred to as a whitelist. The data type, as I mentioned, this is going to be so important for your user. You got to make sure the user that's going to have this functionality has the knowledge and the understanding when he does create a calculation that he knows what the resultant data type is going to be. And then lastly, the expression functions are going to vary dependent on the database type you're using. Whether you're using Oracle, SQL Server, or DB2, the function itself will be different, and also the resultant data type. So your administrator, when he's creating that expression library, it's going to be so important for him to put in the correct function and maybe also to give that information to the user what the resultant data type should be. So as I mentioned all this information, I just want to highlight on the ad hoc reporting with this new set of features that we highly recommend that you look at everyone in your organization. You look at their skill sets, their database knowledge, and their business need. And after you have that information, you only grant them the applicable ad hoc security access. So, for example, if I have one user or one security group, they access one application in Maximo, maybe once a week. We don't want to give them the full suite of ad hoc reporting capabilities because they probably don't have that knowledge and that skill set. They're going to become frustrated. They're going to call you. They're going to put in tickets for you because they don't have the knowledge to create successful ad hoc reports. So again, make sure they have the skill sets, the business need, the database knowledge before they give them access. So we make sure that the reports they create are accurate and that we don't have any negative performance impact. Huge best practice, and there's more information on this also in the additional ad hoc reporting demos for Maximo 7.6. So that leads me to the next couple of slides where I want to highlight where you can go for more information on 7.6 with ad hoc reporting. We have a wiki page with significant examples and information. There's a number of BI recordings which you can find at this link. Also documentation. For ad hoc reporting, there's a manual and there's also a workbook set up, and the workbook corresponds to each one of the ad hoc reporting tabs that has a lot of great information. And then we also have blogs or bylogs, BI, business intelligence logs, always makes me laugh, where you can go for more information. Here's a YouTube channel that I mentioned with a lot of information on ad hoc reporting. We break down each individual tab in detail, information on expression library, etc. And here's the ad hoc reporting guides I mentioned, a very detailed guide versus one that just reviews the business rules at a top level in the spreadsheet format. I love this spreadsheet format. I think it's so easy to navigate to each of the different tabs and the corresponding worksheet. Look at the business rules, become familiar with them so you can understand exactly what's going on. So again, we're so excited about all these new 7.6 QBR or ad hoc reporting features. We encourage you to look at them, experiment with them, and again, remember that best practice before giving out all the functionality that you really carefully evaluate the user's skill set and business need. So with that, I'd like to thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.